Hello and welcome back. We're going to start our second topic, which is still in the roots of where infectious disease and human disease in society comes from, which is in what we often refer to as Eastern medicine or Chinese medicine. So you'll hear a lot of abbreviations with traditional Chinese medicine, TCM. You'll see that abbreviation a lot. And again, a lot of times what people don't realize is that Western medicine, which is what we largely see in the United States has followed, has very specific roots in Eastern medicine or Chinese medicine. And a lot of what we call nowadays new or alternative healthcare actually is some of the oldest methods of healthcare in the world. Like in the last couple of years, how recently have you seen cupping become this big phenomenon with the Olympic athletes and things like that? And yet Chinese medicine practitioners have been doing activities like cupping or fascial scraping for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So even though what we consider new and kind of alternative has been around for many, many years, and it's always important to learn the roots of these things. So when we learn about traditional Chinese medicine, it is the oldest professionally and continuously practiced form of medicine in the world. So way more than Socrates and Hippocrates and all of these, we think is really old philosophical medicine roots in the Western medicine era. It is larger than that. It is actually the second largest medical system in the world and used by over a third of the world's population. So I think that those statistics would bode for us saying it's not so alternative anymore. It's not so outside the box. I actually had a patient of mine who I think summed this up really good. She said, I don't consider anything alternative or outside the norm if my insurance pays for it. My insurance doesn't like to pay for things. So if they find benefit in paying for a service like a cupping session or in terms of herbalism or things like that, it must not be that weird. And I think she's exactly right? If your insurance finds benefit in it, maybe that's saying something, right? So with traditional Chinese medicine, again, this world word of holistic medicine comes back. Remember in discussion 1, we talked about holistic medicine and that we don't just treat the physical symptoms anymore. We try to incorporate the entirety of the body. Your spiritual, your social, your emotional, and your mental health are all part of what makes you healthy or what makes you functional. And Chinese medicine is where this whole thing started. They have always treated the body as an entirety of all of these aspects, not just physical. Your mind can affect your body. Your body's physical health can affect your lifestyle. Your lifestyle can affect your exercise. Exercise and lifestyle go back and re-affect your body. All of these things factor together, and one person can be physically healthy and yet not achieve health because mentally they're not healthy or socially they're not well. Right? So this is where holistic health comes from. And a big derivative or a big focus of Chinese medicine is on something called qi. So even though it's spelled Qi, it's pronounced as qi, like Tai Chi that you see. And it basically is translated as energy. They believe that the body has an energy or a life force, and that basically that life force is affected by all of the different aspects of our body, our soul, our mind, our emotions, etc., and that those can disrupt the qi. And once the qi is disrupted, we have to support all aspects. So a human being results from the qi of heaven and earth, aka your surroundings, your genetics, your congenital defects, your pathogens that surround you, your environment, right? So there are many kinds of qi in our bodies. There's congenital qi, again, your genetics that you were born with or have acquired since birth. The qi from the food you eat, right? Do you get a lot of good energy from Twinkies and Doritos? Probably not, right? The qi from the air we breathe. Do we live in the country where the air is very, fresh and smells of no pollution and fog? Or do we live downtown Los Angeles in the middle of smog city, so to speak, right? We believe that our qi is defensive. It attacks those things that we can't necessarily see, like pathogens, and deals with our immune system. It moves our blood, right? So it helps a lot of times Chinese medicine will say that blood is the life force of the body, and it helps to move and circulate that blood around so that all the parts of the body that need it can get it. And that qi belongs to our internal organs, right? That our organs support our life. They are vital. That's why we call them vital organs, right? We can't live without things like our liver or our pancreas or our intestines or our colon or whatever. So a lot of invisible, intangible energy. So the parts of Chinese medicine that have existed since the 3rd century, so literally hundreds of thousands of years, is traditional medicine of Chinese derivatives have three things. They focus on the spirit, which is an intangible thing, right? Your belief, your value systems, what we might hear called your morals, right? Your soul. So what do you identify as your identity? Are you a good spirited person? Do you have good self-identification? Do you recognize your strengths and your weaknesses? And of course, then your body, right? The tangible aspects of your physical health, your mental health, how you respond emotionally, anxiety, panic, things like that. And when all of these are considered individually, they have components that then dump together to create overlap that affect your organs. Like, for instance, we always say, oh, that's so sad, they're going to die of a broken heart. Well, I don't think people actually realize that there is people who truly die of a broken heart. Is their heart broken? Is it like a little X through it like we see in the cartoons? No. But do they get so emotionally distraught and so mentally frazzled and panicked that their heart declines in function as a result of that and they die of heart failure? Yes, right? So there are documented cases that show that these will eventually affect all of our different organs, right? That people, how many times have you heard of an elderly person who lived independently? They were 80 years old, but they still, had lunch with people. They were independent. They lived alone. They cherished the lifestyle that they had. They tripped and fell. They broke a hip, which landed them in the nursing home. And the idea of them living independently was pretty much being taken away from them. And they just instantly, within a couple of weeks, lost their will to live, because if they don't get life on their terms and their independence, they don't want it, and they just literally start to shut down. This happens all the time, and this comes from deep roots in Chinese medicine beliefs. So yin and yang, this is certainly a symbol that you've probably seen before. You may even have heard it called yin and yang, but a lot of people don't know what yin and yang literally revolves around. So it revolves around the principles that say that everything in life has opposites. Where there's happiness, there's sadness, right? Where there's health, there's disease, right? Everything has a functionality, and we can't live our lives without those opposites. Opposites are always going to exist. You can't control where you fall. But practitioners of Chinese medicine believe that every person has a life force, this life energy within them, and that they can assimilate their body, their spirit, their mind with the purpose of balancing the qi, balancing the opposites, balancing the yin and the yang, right? So black symbolizes, again, things like night, cold, right? Those kind of things, winter, fall months, colder environments, drier air. White is symbolizing summer, warmer environments, light, strength, adventure, right? And life well lived is somebody who can equally balance these two life forces. And so basically it comes back to, if you've ever taken an anatomy class, a homeostasis of sorts, where there's an equal but opposite balance in the body. And it's a very delicate balance. And if you get pulled too far in one direction and not the other direction, you're going to create imbalances. And those imbalances are what allow disease and things to kind of sneak in and offset the balance of your life force, your qi. So there's 5 traditional elements to traditional Chinese medicine: water, wood, fire, earth, and metal. So for instance, fire comes from bitter tastes, Brussels sprouts, for example, right? And bitter affects your heart. Too much bitterness in your lifestyle will affect the functioning of your heart. Your liver is represented by the element of wood, right? So liver comes from sour things. Again, do I love Sour Patch Kids? Yes. Should I eat a whole bag of them? No, because that upsets my liver, creates huge sugar imbalances. Those over time can lead to diabetes and liver dysfunction. Salty, which is represented by the traditional symbol of water. Kidneys are relative to water, right? What do my kidneys do for a living? They filter the water of my body, which is basically they filter blood, and 50% of blood is water, right? So salt also influences how much water is maintained in the body, right? If things are very salty, that tends to make us absorb water or bloat, right? And then metal is represented by spicy elements of life, spicy condiments, spicy spices kind of thing, right? Things that have a lot of personality to them in terms of their flavors. And spicy indicates function of the lungs. So it's very important for all of these things. Earth, which is your sweet stuff for digestion. Of course, too much sweet is going to lead to infects like diabetes, right? And pancreatic, handling sugar disorders. So all of these forces at play represent the different tastes that we encounter in elements of what we eat and how we season our food and what we drink, and all of those affects the 5 core organs of the body. So you could also say that the heart, the digestive system, your lungs, your kidneys, and your liver are the 5 environmental, vital organs that you cannot live without, according to the Chinese traditional medicine practicing. Organs, as I just said, heart, liver, spleen, kidneys, and lungs, each are corresponding to one of the tastes or one of the elements that are considered the 5 elements of Chinese medicine. They are interlocked in an interconnective relationship. So when I have too much of one, not only does it affect that organ, but that organ has effects on other organs. For instance, my liver and my kidneys are independent organs, but they both are filtrational organs. If my kidneys are starting to fail, my liver will pick up the slack. It can only do so for so long, and then being overworked, it starts to fail as well. It's called hepatorenal syndrome. So a lot of these things, though independent, if they are asked to provide us with our qi, they have to work together for a good qi to occur. So it's believed that any pathological change to any of those life organs will affect the health of other organs and the body and the qi as a whole, right? So the 5-element theory of traditional medicine says that there's 12 main organs, but we saw the 5 most important, right? With the 5 most important are listed here on the left, and then they have a corresponding opposite. So for instance, your digestive system, the main organ, your stomach, is paired with your spleen, right? Your stomach and your spleen are in very close proximity, and they have to work together to accommodate pathological change. The spleen is a filtrational organ. Your stomach has to encounter food that you ingest, which often has a lot of pathogens, which need to be filtered out of the blood system by the spleen. Your lungs and your large intestine go hand in hand. Your heart and your small intestines are paired up. Your liver goes with your gallbladder. Your liver makes bile, but your gallbladder stores bile, right? Your kidneys filter your blood, but the filtration portions that have filtered out by the kidneys are stored as urine in the urinary bladder, right? So that's how a lot of these things will go together. Interesting methods of diagnosis when it comes to traditional Chinese medicine is that first and foremost, they observe things. I'm not saying you can diagnose somebody by looking at them, but they make observations. Like for instance, if I'm looking at how somebody's sitting, do they look comfortable? Do they look like they're in pain? Do their facial expressions read that they're happy or that they're distraught or they're, somewhere else in terms of mentally speaking? Physically, I can look at the color of my skin. Is there yellow undertones, which may indicate problems with the liver? If you look at your nails, you have white spots in your nails that indicate protein deficiency. Those are things that we can observe from the outside that doesn't tell us exactly what's wrong with the person, but it gives us insight into some of their organs that might be having problems internally. So again, my hair, my skin, my nails, if somebody has a very bad complexion, that might reflect a poor diet. If they have very dry skin, that might affect how well their filtrational organs are working, right? So all of these things give us little windows or insight into what might be going on inside the body. Again, I can't diagnose somebody by looking at their skin, but it gives me inferences. Like for instance, if my skin and my lips are turning blue, we call that cyanosis. It means that there's a lack of oxygen in the body. Secondly, the diagnostic technique is hearing, right? Listening to tones of a person's voice. Like if somebody calls me let's say my mom calls me, right? And let's say she doesn't even call me from her normal phone. So let's say she calls me from a phone number I don't know. I happen to pick up and I'm like, I instantly know it's my mom, but I then can say, are you sick? You sound like you are under the weather, right? Because I not only know the tone of her voice, but I know when that inflection and the tone of her voice has changed. It's become more nasally or more baritone or whatever it might be, or her breathing sounds different, right? Watching people breathe. Do they have more labored breathing? Are they struggling to breathe? Touch. If I feel them, do I sense that they have cold or hot temperature? Are they sweating? Are they moist? Are they their texture of their skin has become very rough and dry, right? Less frequently, smell is also. Sometimes we smell certain fluids of the body. Like, I know this is gross, but when we do a urinalysis, one of the things we have to do is not only look at the color of your urine to tell us the concentration and things, but we also smell your urine. If it smells very sweet, that can be indicative of diabetes. If it smells very ammonia or putrid smelling, it can indicate bacterial infection, right? So those kinds of things are what they mean by listening to the sense of smell and what it's telling them. One of the largest organs that we use for diagnostic purposes in traditional Chinese medicine is the tongue. They believe the tongue is truly like like a window into your internal organs. The health of your tongue reflects the health of those 5 vital organs, and it reflects the health and functioning of your heart, your liver, your kidneys, your lungs, etc. So when they observe the tongue, they look at the color of the tongue, they look at the shape of the tongue, they look at the coating. Does it have a white coating, which indicates like yeast and a buildup of bacteria or fungi? The moisture of the tongue, is it very dry and cracked, or is it overly moist? And also, each area of the tongue is going to represent a different organ, right? So for instance, this would be considered normal. Why is this tongue so bright red and swollen? Well, a lot of people will call that pyrosis, and it indicates B12 deficiency or alcoholism. Sometimes when you see a very lightly colored tongue, that can be indicative of anemia, right? Low red blood cell count. So there's a lot the tongue can tell us. And these are tip of the tongue represents your heart. Then you have your lungs, your liver, your gallbladder, your stomach, and your spleen, which is the heart of your tongue, if you will. And then lastly, you have your urinary and digestive systems, right? So at the back of your tongue. And these also correlate to different tastes. So the tip of the tongue is most notable for the sweet taste. Your sour taste buds come along from the sides where the gallbladder and liver are. Your salty affects come where the liver and the lungs and the stomach and spleen are. And way at the back, which represents your kidneys, your urinary system, and your intestines, is your bitter sense of taste. If something's very bitter, what does it make you do? It makes you gag, right? So if you have a high gag reflex, we will look to your tongue to say, what's wrong with your kidneys or your intestines, right? That's where the problem lies. That's what they're going to interpret through traditional Chinese medicine. Another very important piece or aspect of Chinese medicine is pulse. Now, we know to take pulse, like the radial pulse, for example, just below your thumb, right? And we test that for how many times per minute your heart is beating, for example. But in traditional Chinese medicine, it goes much deeper. There are 3 positions that you can test your pulse. The radial artery is one of them, and then they slide a little bit below and a little bit above. There's also a superficial, a middle, and a deep level of pulse. And those pulses, along with 28 other pulses in your body, again, are thought to give windows to different organs in your system, right? So again, if I feel a pulse by barely pushing, that can indicate normalcy. But if I have to push even deeper to get that pulse, what organs are being affected? Why is the pulse being altered? Due to what upsets inside the body? Are there parasites? Is there cancer? That kind of thing. So again, here's my taste buds: sweet, salty, sour, and bitter. And then we have this sort of other one, which is pungent. You don't hear about that a lot, but pungent, represented by things like garlic. Cilantro would be another one that's pungent. You either like it and you like lots of it, or you don't like it at all. It's kind of one of those that falls in between. So pungent also is thought to be a Japanese word umami, which means savoriness, and a savoriness is often attributed to certain herbs or certain chemicals like monosodium glutamate or MSG, right? So again, pungentness of something, if you like a lot of garlic or a lot of cilantro, that is a pungent taste, right? So greasy, overly sweet foods thought to impair digestion, which is why we see those areas where the sweet foods impair things like the liver and the heart, right? Also, with every other part of traditional Chinese medicine, cures for substituting foods helps to cure disease. I think it was, what's the guy's name? I'm going to not... philosopher guy, I can't think of it, I'm having a brain fart. It's Hippocrates or one of those that said, let food be thy medicine, right? food is traditionally used to treat nutritional deficiencies. Now, there's no deficiency that calls for an abundance of Oreos. There's no deficiency that says, here, eat more pot roast, right? But there are key deficiencies like vitamin D and certain minerals that certain foods are prevalent with that we will say, hey, if you do more garlic, this will help with this nutritional deficiency. If you have vitamin D deficiency, then eating more mushrooms is a good source, or kale is a good source of vitamin D, right? Those kinds of let food be thy medicine, so to speak, not an actual pill. Very important in traditional Chinese medicine. It follows the functions of yin and yang, so it considers balance, that you can eat just about everything, but the key is in moderation. And of course, we would say an abundance of foods that are neutrally in balance. So if you're going to have something sweet, you better have something that is the opposite of sweet, which is bitter, right? To balance that sweet and savory kind of mechanism. Too much spice will create heartburn and fire and excessive hunger. Too much sugar gets you in a hamster wheel of I'm hungry. How many times do you have 100-calorie snack pack that you devour and like 10 minutes later you're like, I want another one, right? Versus if you eat a huge salad, a huge bowl of salad, which has very little calories and nothing sweet about it, you can eat tons of it and it will fill up and nourish you and not cause you to crave more food. So conversely, if you have too much food that's hot, if every meal you eat is hot food, you need to balance that by having food that is also cold represented. Why most parts of Europe believe in drinking water at room temperature. Only in the United States is it the norm to drink ice water, right? It's worse for digestion to have cold water being poured into the body. So a lot of these things and why people do certain things or why certain countries look at certain dietary responses is based on a lot of roots in Chinese medicine. And I think everyone knows that everything in moderation, right? Like grapefruits are wonderful for you. Lots of vitamin C. Should you have a grapefruit every single day for breakfast? Probably not. They're very acidic. They're not great for the enamel on your teeth. But is it okay to have one or two in a week for breakfasts? Sure, right? You got to balance those things. If you're going to have a sweet treat, have a healthy snack, right? Kind of thing. So it goes back to the yin and yang. So traditional Chinese medicine is basically based in 5 different treatment forms. There's herbalism, so prescribing herbs, whether they be roots or stems or things or leaves or teas that you drink. Acupuncture, which is the placement of very fine needles in very specific areas of the body that are reference points for certain organs. Moxibustion, which is basically, I'll talk about it, but it's basically mugwort, which is a certain type of herb that we use to burn and cleanse the body of certain qi. Cupping, which again, you saw in the last Olympics, like the swimmers, like Michael Phelps and stuff, big alternative therapy that is not so alternative. It's been around for years that now athletes and professional athletes swear by because it helps to remove the fascial adhesions that we see between our skin and our muscles that come from injuries like hamstring injuries and things like that, and help to loosen up the muscle fixations that can occur with repetitive use. Massage therapy. I mean, a lot of people think massage therapy is, massage parlors, right? But there's a lot of traditional massage therapy now that is therapeutic, licensed massage therapists who don't just perform relaxation massage, they perform deep treatment or deep pressure massages or specific pressure massages to free up certain parts of the body or certain muscular fields. So if we look at these, the first one we'll look at, of course, is herbalism. Herbalism comes from Chinese herbs, which some of those are very unfamiliar to us, not like every herbal supplement we see on the store shelves here. Herbal medicine has been used for over 4,000 years, so there's lots of statistics and history behind it. Big thing that I think not enough people pay attention to is you'll hear a herb that becomes popular, like, for instance, turmeric, right? In the last couple of years, we've heard turmeric is the best thing for arthritis and anti-inflammatory. It is. There are lots of statistics that will show it's a great natural anti-inflammatory. The problem is, what part of the plant are they using? Roots are very specific to helping with turmeric. The leaves of turmeric plants don't really have statistics to back up that it's an anti-inflammatory. So you might have a patient who's taking supplement A that says, well, this turmeric is not really working for me, and I have them bring the supplement in, and I look at what they bought at Walmart, and it doesn't matter how much they paid for it. That doesn't mean it's better or worse than anything else, but I'll point out to them, well, this is using turmeric leaves and stems, which have never been proven as the anti-inflammatory portion of that organ or that plant. So a big part comes in education and recognizing what parts of what herbs and plants are the parts that have traditional backing behind them as healing or inflammatory or anti-inflammatory properties. The ingredients, when they're mixed, which is called compounding, can sometimes have better effects than just a single herb by itself individually. And it's believed that a lot of these herbs can incite the nutritional or differences in qi that we find in the body. So a lot of Chinese medicine invokes mixing of these herbs in very specific mixtures, specific to that person. Not just like, oh, you have tennis elbow, you should take this, this, and this herb. It's dependent on the person and their specific issue and cause. So again, they customize them for you. There's over 3,000 different Chinese herbs that are practiced. And again, no two prescriptions. So just like we would go to the pharmacy and pick up a prescription, in Chinese medicine, there are Chinese pharmacies which specifically compound certain herbs together that are specifically made for you and your condition. Most of the remedies in traditional Chinese medicine are safe. They're effective, again, if they're used correctly. Most Chinese herbs that are truly grown in China are very regulated in terms of where they're grown, what type of soil, what type of region are they grown in, and they have what's called a GMP, or good manufacturing practices. They are tested spontaneously by things like the FDA when they're imported into our country, but a lot of times this is just my opinion, but I tend to trust Chinese supplements and European supplements in terms of if they're made there more so than I check the ones in the United States, because the US, it'll say FDA approved really means nothing. It's like stamping organic on a bag of lettuce. Even if you live on an organic farm, right? If you live within a 10-mile radius of some other farm, chances are you've got spores of non-organic material growing in your field of lettuce, so to speak. So, stamping and labeling something is not as effective as you would think it is. It's not a foolproof way. So the Chinese herbal powders are usually the most traditional way. So they will grind the herbs very finely into powders. You can drink those powders in water, like as a tea. That's the most common, I would say, way to take Chinese herbs. Of course, some people will powderize it and throw it in yogurt or something. Pre-made herbal formulas can also be put in capsules. So you can take the powder and buy blank capsules and stick the powder in there and take it like you would any sort of vitamin or supplement. Raw herbs are sometimes utilized too. So they can put raw herbs in a pot, boil the water, and then that herb components leaches into the water, and then they'll strain the water and drink the water. That's another very common way to utilize Chinese herbs. Now, acupuncture looks much scarier than it is. It's actually, again, a very mainstream therapy nowadays. It's not as alternative as we once chalked it up to be, and it's the stimulation of very specific anatomical points to stimulate the qi of certain vital life force organs. So usually these needles are very, very small. If you are with an experienced practitioner, you feel no pain as the needle's being inserted. They are like hair thin, right? Literally, you don't even feel them. I mean, I don't even know that they feel like a mosquito bite. And they definitely are a great tool for some of my patients who don't respond to my go-to method. So sometimes the go-to methods, they work great for most people, and then there's those 20%ers that they don't work so great for, and you have to reach into your toolbox and find another method that might break through to them. And acupuncture is definitely one of those tools. Acupuncture needles do not hurt, as I've said. Many people find that it's actually very relaxing if they're placed in these correct symmetry points, or what we call qi points on this anatomical force of mapping, so to speak. A lot of people will find a lot of relief and a lot of comfort from acupuncture. And so these often take longer to insert than the entire process is left there. And a lot of times people will fall asleep during the process. So it's not painful. It doesn't cause you pain to put them in or take them out. If you've ever had acupuncture and it was very painful, consider trying to get it from a different practitioner, because sometimes it's just the person that's doing the work that is not as skilled as somebody else. Again, can acupuncture treat pain? It's debatable, but there's a lot of scientific research out there that shows that, yes, some people get endorphin releases from that. So endorphins, of course, are Mother Nature's painkillers. So if you get an endorphin release from acupuncture, that's going to tamp down the amount of pain that you feel. It increases blood flow. It increases muscle relaxation, right? And so this has been a modality of health that the Chinese have been using for over 5,000 years. And it's funny that we call it New Age medicine here in the Western cultures because of the fact that it's only been recently within the last 60 or so years been brought over to be a mainstream part of our healing journeys here in the United States. How do they know where to put the needles? Well, that's a skilled acupuncturist. They go to school to learn the mapping. There's 365 channels of acupuncture points, and each of those points represents a different part of the internal body, whether it be an organ, a body cavity, a particular muscle of types. And basically, those points are chosen based on symptoms. So if you come in with symptoms, let's say of your liver, we're going to activate with acupuncture needles the channels that are best suited for liver stimulation and blood flow to increase to the liver, for example. Moxibustion, again, probably one of the Chinese that you've not heard of as much, although I have recently in the last year seen advertisements for things that involve Moxibustion on things like TikTok. People might not hear them called Moxibustion, but recently I saw where they were selling mugwort, which is like a herb, a traditional Chinese herb, and they were selling it in little paper things that people were to insert in their belly button and then put sort of a patch over. And the belly button is a very key point in traditional Chinese medicine as a entrance point into the body, and then they use the mugwort to detox and to treat colds. And in this particular case, they were trying to sell it for weight loss, right? Which I don't know how well it works for weight loss, but it does have statistical evidence for helping prevent, not prevent colds, but decrease the duration of having a cold or some sort of infection. It helps to draw the bad energy or bad qi out of the body and improve blood flow to the area that is not working as well. And so usually we place mugwort on the body, as you see here. It is sort of lit on fire like an incense of sorts, so not literally like on fire. And again, the body inhales the smoke from the mugwort, and it's transdermally entering the body through the skin, and this is thought to improve the circulation to the areas that are deficient and are failing in terms of the immune system. Cupping, again, when you see all the crazy athletes that have all the big circles on their back that it look like purple bruises, people are like, what did you do? Like something happened to them, right? Well, cupping is a very ancient technique of, again, muscle relaxation. It's basically meant to help separate the fascia, the connective tissue, from the muscle, and those two things, if they get stuck together with the skin, can cause adhesions. And so what we do is we basically use cups that are usually made of glass traditionally, but they can be bamboo or earthenware. Majority of what I see used here in the United States are glassware. And basically they use suction to remove the pressure or the air from inside the cup. That helps to pull the skin up, which separates it from the fascia and allows the muscles to relax. It also reduces swelling in the area, and it increases blood flow. And anytime you have blood flow, you have healing capability, right? That's how the body heals itself. It has to have good oxygenated blood supply. So if people have repetitive injuries, from, let's say I'm a swimmer professionally and all I do is swim for 4 hours a day, imagine how sore and tense those muscles are. This is a way to help for chronic situations of pain and relaxation. Chinese massage, again, different than what I would call relaxation massage at a spa here, like not the kind that you get at a day spa, so to speak. It is specifically known to activate certain muscles and certain life force aspects of the body, particularly the forehead, the jaw area is a very common one, lymph node removal, draining lymph from the body. It brings awareness back to the person. It stimulates body and blood flow fluids, right? So it helps to drain the lymph, helps blood flow initiate. So again, blood carries the waste products to the dumps of the body, which are your liver, your kidneys, and your spleen. And it's used as a way to deal with stress, not necessarily take stress away. It also is really effective for some people that often swear by it for having digestive massage, where they have chronic issues like ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease. So you'll see that instituted for some of them as well. Qigong is very similar to Tai Chi. It's a form of Chinese exercise, and it's not so much in physical exercise like running on a treadmill to increase stamina. It's more mindful exercise where you're in tune with your breathing. Your diaphragm is a big muscle that we really focus on in Qigong. And external Qigong is performed by a Qigong master, and usually they are the ones that are teaching meditation with this, breathing. It's kind of like a little bit of karate, martial arts, essentially, meditation, if you can combine those two things, although they seem very opposite. Controlling the body, being in control of the mindfulness of the body is a lot of what Qigong will focus on. It's very similar to a Tai Chi. Meditation is also a very big part of traditional Chinese medicine. They believe that getting into touch or in tune with your own body, listening to your breaths, can calm a lot of what we call biofeedback type evidence. So there's evidence that meditation can help to lower your blood pressure. There's evidence that it can help to lower your stress. And it's a way of dealing with stress. It's not a cure for stress, but it's a mechanism or a modality that we can use to mitigate the stress that is in our lives. And people have been proven that the more they're self-aware, which is what meditation causes, the less opportunistic type of infections that they may receive or be victim to. So one of the questions that I get asked a lot is preventative medicine a big component of what Chinese medicine is all about? And I would say it is a foundational pillar of Chinese medicine. They believe in yin and yang sort of function for every aspect of your life. Nutritional balance, hydration balance, being in touch with yourself and being self-aware and being in control of your emotions and your mental responses are all part of the preventative aspects of traditional Chinese medicine. It's not about just treating disease. It's being in tune when the body starts to go into dis-ease to prevent it from becoming full-blown disease. So very much a part of Chinese medicine. A lot of people also ask me too, what are the educational statistics of somebody who practices as a doctor of Chinese medicine? So in China, to receive a traditional Chinese medicine doctorate degree, you have to complete 5 years of traditional Chinese medicine school in addition to a 2-year rotation, right? Like a 2-year residency, essentially is what we'd call it in this country. Acupuncturists, registered herbalists, registered dietitians, those kind of things. They can even specialize beyond those 7 years of education. So it's very close in terms of our medical schools if you're going to specialize, which would be 8 years. So it is a very advanced degree, much more so than people think. They are regulated by a board of medicine in China, just like they would be in the United States. And they must pass a very rigorous exam, just like we would pass entrance exams here, or what we call our medical boards. And that involves them knowing 476 of the 3,000 Chinese herbs and 222 of the most commonly used herbal formulations. So again, they have to study a large amount of time. They put in a lot of hours and a lot of residency. So it's very similar to somebody going to medical school here. It's not just like, oh, I'm interested in herbs, let me see what I can do. There is a lot of educational progress or a lot of educational fortitude that goes into being a traditional Chinese medicine doctor. All right, so you've finished number 2. Next, you will tackle the subject of Western medicine.